Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here giving you a personal prediction for Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. And of course, this is just my personal take. Your prediction can be left down in the comments section below, especially for a fight like this with how big it certainly can be. Would love to hear all your predictions, bets, thoughts, so on and so forth down in the comments section below. A little bit of fight info here. We have Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion of the world, taking on Dillian Whyte. Finally, after long waits and never gonna happens for Dillian Whyte, here we are. It's taking place at the Wembley Stadium in London, England, on pay-per-view on both sides of the pond, with the Ring Magazine and WBC Heavyweight Championship possessed by Tyson Fury on the line. And it's always fun when the heavyweight prize is on the line and you have two legitimate threats. And in my opinion, that's what this is. At least it should be. And on paper, Fury beats Whyte. I think most would agree there outside of Eddie Hearn for his very obvious reasons. However, part of the allure with heavyweight boxing is that power. One powerful shot can change literally everything. It can legitimately erase an entire fight of good boxing for the guy that gets knocked out. That's true anywhere in boxing, but especially at the top, and we know that Dillian Whyte can crack. That much is certain. But does he have the skill to land that power on Tyson Fury? Or is the skill of Fury just too much and just too many levels above Dillian Whyte? That's sort of the question here, and that's what we're looking to break down, so let's get into this one. Starting with Fury here, for Fury to win, I think he needs to punish Whyte with the jab. Now, that's pretty much the best weapon a boxer puncher of Fury's caliber has in general, but especially in a fight against a very aggressive fighter like Whyte, this punch might be his key to success more than anything else. Whyte, I believe, is going to come in and try to land those shots, the sort of shots he needs to win this fight, in my opinion. One way to offset that, to get his timing, his rhythm off, to not really let him load up with that power, is to stick your longer arm out in that jab form and really punish him with him, break him up with it. And the more and the quicker you can do that, and the faster you kind of put him in his place in this fight for Fury, I think the better. And I think that jab is going to be a key part in making sure you kind of tame the beast, so to speak. I would also say keep your punches quick. I don't think that you need to meet fire with fire in the case of Dillian Whyte, because I don't think that, quite honestly, you're going to necessarily have an easy time knocking him out. Yes, Whyte has been stopped in the past, but it's not as though he has a really suspect chin. It's heavyweight boxing. Things can happen. But I think one of the ways that does happen is if you're just allowing your hands to flow and just letting the knockout come. Let him walk into the shot more than you having to press that kind of action. If you can just keep your hands quick and really fluid and put your punches together, in my opinion, you have a much better shot of stopping Dillian Whyte, or at the very least dominating him round by round, than you do trying to go fire with him. And at that point, you're kind of making it more of a 50-50 fight. And I just don't see, if you're Fury, why you'd want to do that. I would also say keep Whyte guessing. You know, if you're Fury, one of your best tools, the best tool that you might have outside of like a jab, a physical tool, something like that, is that you can really surprise people with your tactics, because they've seen you do everything. They've seen you bulldoze a puncher. They've seen you outbox a puncher. They've seen you fight conventionally, fight in a more unorthodox style as a southpaw. For long stretches of time, you've boxed more, you've moved more, you've been in dull fights, exciting fights, you've been easier to hit at times because you're willing to engage more, you've been much harder to hit at other times. You really have shown, if you're Fury, a significant amount of wrinkles to your game. One of the ways I think that you can kind of outsmart a fighter of Dillian Whyte's caliber is by keeping him guessing in that fight. So be more aggressive one round, box a little bit more the other round. Don't give him obviously too many windows, but just make him think. And if the fight becomes a thinking man's game, my money would be pretty safely on Fury, in my opinion. Now, for Whyte to win, I think he needs to exploit the gaps. Now, what do I mean? I mean a couple things there, technically. First thing I mean is that I don't think he's going to outspeed Fury by any stretch of the imagination. So I think he's going to need to try and look to land in between those shots that Fury's trying to throw. I think that's his best bet for landing something meaningful. Get Fury to commit to combinations and then be willing to maybe take a shot or two to land your heavier shots in the middle of that kind of fray. The other thing I mean with exploit the gaps, though, is if Fury is backing off, is he is trying to box a little bit more, and he has a little bit more of a lapse in action, or a gap in action, so to speak, you're going to want to have to take advantage of those. You need to push him back in those moments. Put him up against the ropes and start going to work. The more and more you can do that, and the quicker you can do that in this fight, the better chance you have for success. But if you're unable to exploit those gaps, you're going to be in quite a bit of trouble if you're Dillian Whyte. I would also say you must come forward. I don't see Dillian Whyte obviously winning this fight going backwards. I don't think anyone sees that happening. He has to come forward. But more specifically, he needs to cut off the ring. He needs to get Whyte, or rather get Fury up against those ropes, and he needs to punish him there. You know, he's called the body snatcher because he has some solid shots to the body that he can land that we'll actually be getting into in just a second here. That's something that he's going to need to try and look to take advantage of. If he's trying to outbox a great boxer puncher like Fury, that's just not going to work. He needs to press him back, get him up against those ropes, start doing damage. And specifically, this helps him because he's fighting a long, rangy guy like Fury. When you get him up against the ropes and now all of a sudden they're leaning and they're not able to get as much distance between the pair of you, suddenly that height and reach advantage dissipates to some degree, which is obviously going to benefit Whyte the more he can get that to happen in this fight. And finally, dig that left hook to the body. As I kind of alluded to there just a few seconds ago, that left hook to the body by Whyte can definitely be a punch that can punish Fury long term. He just has to be able to get it off. And if he's not able to, he's going to be in trouble. But if he can push him up against those ropes, dig that shot to the body, it could be, Fury is a tall guy. His torso is a big, solid target. That's what you have to be aiming for. And the quicker you can get to it and the more often you can get to it, obviously is going to benefit Whyte, which is why I think it's an area that he probably should target pretty early on in the fight. Now, while Whyte has a puncher's chance, every indication that I can look at sort of suggests Fury's reign at the top will continue. Things could be chippy at first, as both certainly can carry emotion into the ring, but my feeling is Fury will be looking to tame Whyte in those first 4 or 5 rounds, which is what I think he'll be doing, possibly by switching stances or just kind of going in a little bit more, then jabbing and moving a bit more, just kind of trying to gain control of the action. Whyte will be looking to land over the top with something big and probably trying to attack the body. I think that will be a tactic, but we'll see how successful he can be. By those middle frames, Fury will be leaning on Whyte, jabbing harder and busting him up, and kind of landing with those fast hands. It won't be power, but speed that beats Whyte in this fight. I can see a late stoppage for Fury, but I suspect Tyson cruises to a decision victory after putting in another quality performance, probably start to finish, helped by that jab and those quick combinations that frustrate Whyte long term and just kind of present a puzzle he's unable to solve. Fury via unanimous decision. And the betting odds sort of suggest that they agree with me on this one for very obvious reasons. Again, Fury is a great fighter, and he's coming in at a minus 600 with Dillian Whyte coming in at a plus 390. So if you suspect the upset here, you have some pretty decent value. I mean, you're basically getting 4-1 underdog odds here. Certainly something worthy of a bet. Again, it's heavyweight boxing, anything can happen, but I'm certainly not betting the house on that. But a fun little bet to keep the fight interesting certainly isn't going to hurt anyone. In terms of the Fury money line, there's really not a great deal of value in that there. I mean, unless you have large amounts of money and all the confidence in the world, there's just no value in that bet at all. 6-1. Again, think he's going to win, but that's just too much risk for the reward in that particular case. But certainly something I guess you can look at. What I'd be more interested in is something like an over-under, which of course you can always kind of set based on what sort of odds you're looking to acquire. I would guess that an over-under in this fight is probably going to be around the 9 to 10 round mark. Again, because I predict decision, I could understand why someone would go with maybe the over in that case, but you just never know. It's heavyweight boxing. Either way, this fight could go. It's just hard to predict with heavyweight fighting, but nonetheless, those are your odds. And my prediction record heading into the weekend is 14-4-0 with 3 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts, your predictions, what sort of bets you have going on in this fight would be very interesting as well. And kind of who do you think is going to win, of course. Want to hear that as well. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. And you can email me at jonboxing@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jonboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, all that good stuff. I did recently update the schedule with a lot of betting odds, and so for the next couple of months out, you can kind of check out all the big and prominent fights we have coming up, of course. And of course, be sure to check out my fighter grade series, which I have coming out later this weekend after the big show, so I can give you kind of these grades on some of these fighters. And as always, until next time.